coming.
Yeah. We had wanted to visit the scenic Wałcza Valley of the Danube River. It's a 9-hour bus and boat trip through to the ancient monastery of Melk, and it was only cost a bit over €100 for each of us.
Archivo Central in Baviera in Munich.
Something too good to pass
Il
up.
1246 è l'ultimo rappresentante dello.
The scenery was nice. You pass by vineyards planted on steep hillsides and medieval fortifications, and stop at a village that dates back to the Middle Ages.
In Krems.
It was a little over 1,200 years ago when the Salzburg and Bavarian monasteries began to cultivate the sides of the Wałcza Valley. They made the present-day landscape and the pattern of vine terraces. This valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. UNESCO describes the Wałcza cultural landscape as the stretch of the Danube between Melk and Krems, a valley landscape of high visual quality. It preserves in an intact and visible form many traces in terms of architecture, monasteries, castles, ruins, urban design, towns and villages, and agricultural use, principally for the cultivation of vines. There were white blossoms of the apricot trees all over when we came in early spring. Apricots is a crop that is grown throughout the valley. You can buy many apricot products at the gift shops. According to UNESCO, basic layouts of Wałcza towns date back to the 11th and 12th centuries. The development of the settlements with their homogeneous character becomes evident in the town structures, both in the fabric and arrangement of the houses on mostly irregular lots, and in the street patterns, which have remained practically unchanged since the late Middle Ages. Some town centers have been somewhat extended on their outer fringes by the construction of small residential buildings, mostly from the 1950s. And onwards, there's some new buildings also. In the 15th and 16th centuries, stone construction began to replace the wooden peasant and burgher houses. The tower's steeply pitched, hipped roof occurs so frequently that it can be regarded as an architectural characteristic of the Wałcza house. Many 18th century buildings, such as taverns or inns, stations for changing draught horses, boat operators and toll houses, mills, smithies, or salt storehouses, some of them frequently dating back to the 15th and 16th centuries, still serve trade and craft purposes. They are partly integrated in the town structure. A number of castles dominate the towns and the Danube Valley. For a variety of political, economic, and environmental reasons, there have been few radical interventions over time, even in the latter decades of the 20th century, which would have obliterated or distorted evidence of the organic growth of the Wałcza. From the mid-20th century until now, the first 2 decades of the 21st century, protective measures have been progressively introduced, and their sustained implementation will ensure the conservation and protection of the property in the valley in the future. Once again, UNESCO comments on its authenticity. The authenticity of the Wałcza is high. It showcases the fundamental elements of a living cultural landscape, inasmuch as it retains an active social role in contemporary society, and is closely associated with the traditional way of life and its continuous evolutionary process. The properties provide significant material evidence of its evolution over time. These qualities are manifested in the agricultural and forest landscape, in the layouts of towns, and in the conservation and authenticity of individual monuments. Also, the people of the Wałcza conserve and carefully develop the fundamental elements of a living cultural landscape. Yeah. We'll put this information down below also. The boat does have a kitchen and a menu, and it can provide tea, coffee, soft drinks, sandwiches, soup, basic cafeteria food. The previous day in Vienna, it had been a beautiful spring day. This day, it was cold and windy, so we spent most of the trip inside the boat, although you can get out on deck.
Today.
Beside the kitchen on the boat, once you get to the Abbey, there is a restaurant that we were told was very nice but not inexpensive. If you've already spent your budget for the day, there's nothing that says you can't bring your own picnic lunch. We saw one couple doing that as they sat at their table and watched the scenery go by. I was told that the history of viticulture here in the Melk Valley is thought to trace back as far as Celtic tribes in 100 BC. Evidently the Romans also had some vineyards here, but most of the work was done by the monks. They're the ones that built these steep terraces. I am not a wine connoisseur, but evidently there are three classification levels for the wine grown in this region. The first is Steinfeder, and those are for wines up to 11.5% alcohol. Federspiel is for wines between 11.5 and 12.5% alcohol. And Smargid, I guess that's how you pronounce it, must have a minimum of 12.5% alcohol. I will say, in my younger days when I was just starting out, I did live in an area with many wine enthusiasts. It seemed like the pros preferred Mad Dog 2020, Thunderbird, and Night Train Express. Since the year 1089, Melk Abbey has been the home of a community of Benedictines, which currently consists of 22 monks. While some of them live directly in the monastery, others are in the abbey's parishes. In their respective places, they strive to accomplish the tasks entrusted to the abbey centuries ago. Through their vows, the Benedictines of Melk Abbey pledged allegiance to this specific community in this particular place with all its tasks and challenges. The abbey, above the town of Melk, Lower Austria, is on a rocky outcrop overlooking the Danube River. The abbey contains the tomb of Saint Coloman of Stockerud and the remains of several members of the House of Babenberg, Austria's first ruling dynasty. The monastic library soon became renowned for its extensive manuscript collection and production. Many of them contain musical compositions. In the 15th century, the abbey became the center of the Melk Reform movement, which reinvigorated the monastic life of Austria and southern Germany. The modern abbey you see today was built between 1702 and 1736. Particularly noteworthy are the abbey church with frescoes by Johann Michael Rottmeier and Paul Troger. In the later 18th century, Abbey of Melk became a center of enlightenment, thought, and social exchange. There was even a Masonic lodge there, since a number of monks were Freemasons. In the novel The Name of the Rose, Umberto Eco named one of the medieval protagonists Adso of Melk as a tribute to the famous abbey. We were told that inside the chapel itself, photography was forbidden. But we could still enter and admire all the gilded sights. There must be, I don't know, $1 million with a gold leaf on everything.